Welcome to another class. So tonight's class is going to be a little bit different. So if you're interested in working with colored pencils, this might be the class for you. So if you're new here, my name is Paige. I'm the Chief Pixel Pusher and Paintbrusher over at Gumption. And tonight we're going to be painting this guy. We're going to be using both watercolor and colored pencils to create this guy. And I'm excited to get started with you. First, let's cover a few bases here. Like I said before, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I have a lot of new subscribers here that are subscribing to this channel. So if that is you, thanks for tuning in. We do this most Thursday nights, so you can always check it out. Again, we're going to be painting or drawing this little guy, so it will be a little bit longer class. I think normally we're kind of at an hour, so I'm going to try to keep it at an hour, but we might go a little bit over. First and foremost, before we get started, you're going to need a reference image and a trace image, and I have included that link in the description below this, this video, or if you're tuning in on Facebook, it should be in that description there too. So you should be able to snag that without a problem. We are going to be using an image to trace, and I've set up that paper for you already. See, we've already got a comment here. Hello, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. It looks like we have a new person checking in tonight. If I can say your name correct, Calistino. Thanks for tuning in from Twitch. So, all right. So again, hit those links in the description. And let's see. Again, hit that reference image. Tonight, we're going to be using both watercolors and colored pencils. We might be doing minimal watercolor, so we will be using burnt sienna mostly and some orange there. But in colored pencils, I'll be using kind of a deep purple and some yellows, and I'll be sharing the names of those colors as I am drawing. If you have questions, please throw them in chat, and I will try to answer those as I am working. All right. I think that is good. I think we've covered all our bases there tonight. So let's get working. Oh, this is awesome. You're tuning in from Brazil. That is amazing. So thank you for tuning in. It's okay that your English is bad. Sometimes mine is bad too. So welcome. I hope that you learned something from this class. All right, so I'm going to switch my camera view and we're going to get started. If you have any questions, again, go ahead and throw them in chat and let's get to working. Right after I switch my camera view. All right. So this is what we're going to be working on tonight. We may not get as detailed, but we will try. And I'm going to show you some tools tonight too that I use, especially when I am working in colored pencils. So I'm going to try to work quickly. If you're going to work along with me, again, or if you're going to tune in after this airs, go ahead and grab those resources and we'll get started. Let's see. So what I have done is I've taken my tracing there, I've colored the back of it, and then I transfer it to my paper here. I think I might use a colored pencil because then I can tell where I have been. Now, at some point, we should probably have a class where I am teaching you how to draw a horse, but sometimes these little snackable art classes are great for my clients and family who like to get to drawing, but may only have an hour or so to paint, and they want to get to painting. And so at some point we can do some drawing classes if you're interested. So this is a neighborhood horse that we have several horses over here, and they are all gorgeous. And I decided I wanted to do something a little bit different, and maybe not another flower. We've kind of done a few of those. Thank you very much. You too can do this as well. So I hope that you're happy with your drawing. I hope you're drawing along with us tonight. Okay. So it doesn't hurt to periodically check and make sure that this is transferring to your paper, especially if you've used this before. You know, and I'm open to hearing if there are other classes that you would like to see. I'm open to hearing what you might be interested in. I primarily do watercolor on this channel, but sometimes it's nice to really change things up a little bit. I know I need it occasionally, and I'm sure you do too. So, and I really wanted to explore this technique with you because sometimes if you feel like you struggle with watercolor, sometimes it makes it a little easier to do some exploration with colored pencil. And so you can combine them. You can do watercolor with pen. There are lots of things to explore there. I struggled with watercolor when I first learned and was taking classes. So it doesn't mean it will always be that way for you if you struggle. Sometimes practice really makes a difference. Okay. So if you guys are drawing along with me, you might want a little bit of time here. Let me know how you're doing in the comments if you're drawing along. I'm just kind of looking here, making sure that I'm not going to lose some of my lines here. So I'm kind of drawing them in. Zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you can see that okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get started, I think. If you are painting along, let me know if I need to slow down a little bit. I'm going to zoom out here. So I'm going to pull up my reference image here, and you could see that this is the image that I have used for drawing this guy earlier. I'm going to pull up my picture as well. All right, so I'm going to get my watercolors ready. And because my colored pencils are wax-based, this means that you are not going to have the best of luck watercoloring on top. So we start with watercolor first. And I'm going to I have a transparent pyrrole orange here, and I have a burnt sienna. And those are what we're going to be using here. Now, if you don't have a wide array of colored pencils, you could paint more and then hit them with highlights and shadows with your colored pencils, or if you just want to lay down an overall base, you can hit it with some orange paint and get going from there. We'll probably be doing a lot more colored pencil than we will be doing painting tonight. So just know that. So I'm going to have a bunch of, sorry for all the noise here. I'm going to take my palette here, and I'm assessing the lights and the darks here with this horse, and I see that we've got some light coming this direction. We have some darker areas here, of course, where the sun's not hitting. So I'm kind of assessing all of this as I am thinking about painting this guy. So I'm going to start kind of light, I think. And then I want it to be vibrant, but I don't want it to be too dark. So I'm mixing my burnt sienna and my orange, putting a little water in there. And we've got some light hitting here. So I'm going to hit with my orange over here, kind of down into the nose area. And I'm leaving out areas where we have this hair. So we can leave these areas light. Then I can go in with my burnt sienna here. We have this form shadow here that kind of faces away from the light, so it's a little bit darker. And actually all over his ear we've got this nice tone. You can lighten it up if you want a little. I may need to be careful here because I've gotten it in the nose area, and this is a lighter area for this horse. You can always take your paper towel or your brush, kind of dab out any areas that you didn't mean to get into. And I'm going to start a little bit lighter here. We've got some kind of light shining in here. What's great about using colored pencils is that you can really explore color, and it's pretty, I don't know, it's just more user-friendly sometimes. You can add light to areas that you might need to. You know, we're just so used to using pencils. So I'm just kind of looking at my reference image and drawing in with my brush a little bit. These areas. Kind of get around this eye area. And you can do as much detail as you want to here. I'm going to do more colored pencil, so we'll kind of go that route. I'm actually going to paint his mane here, and I'm going to use Naples yellow, which is kind of this light yellow. Well, it looks like I have a cat in here that I didn't know was in here. She's probably going to jump up here in a minute. Stay down, Luce. And I got my finger in my watercolor paint. Yeah, this Naples yellow really is kind of the perfect color for this mane. If you don't have a Naples yellow, you could use a buff color. You could use a watered down yellow, whatever you've got. You don't need to have the exact colors that I have to be successful at painting or painting this. So use what you've got. And I think, just looking at this, I'm going to hit this whole hair area here. No. And Lucy's just going to get up here. She is determined. You know, the funny thing is, when I first started live streaming these classes, it just seemed like there was always something that would go awry, whether my internet connection would be funky or, you know, whatever. And I have kind of moved out of having technical issues to now just having a cat issue. Also, if you have a yellow ochre here, you could also use it in this hair area too. So I'm going to let that dry for a minute. I'm going to get a smaller brush here because I'm going to work some color into this eye. And I'm going to use, I have a mixture here on my palette that's sort of a navy blue color. You could use a Payne's gray, you could use a black. I would water down my black a little bit just because you don't want it too dark. You want to be able to create some highlights in the eye, even though they're really minimal. So I'm going to use this. The Sodalite color is the same as a Payne's gray. And I'm just going to paint that in there. And then also we have this area at the nose. Get down, Luce. Here. Get down. We'll see if she listens to me. And this lower lip area. And I'm going to kind of get this nose area here. These horses are absolutely gorgeous. And I can't forget to finish the ear. So I'm going to use this orange color here. Get this ear. That looks really bright, doesn't it? Now you can always go in and darken this. You can keep painting if you want to here. You can add in our darker shadows. The one thing that I struggle with a little bit here with my other sketch was the neck area. It's a little hard to see, so I'm just gonna put that in there. And we'll get to talking about colored pencils here in just a minute. Okay, so this is probably good enough for me to get moving forward to the colored pencil stage. Okay. So I'm going to put away my painting stuff here, and we're going to whip out some colored pencils. And I'm going to share some tips with you on different things that you can use as you're working in colored pencil. I'm going to move this so this can dry a little bit. So one thing that I do with my colored pencils is I separate them out, actually. So I have these cutlery bins that I put them in. I separate them out by color, and then I can kind of see if I'm low on a color. It also really helps me as I'm moving forward to draw. So that's one tip that I have for you that you might find really handy. And I use a variety of tools. So I have this spare piece of paper here so I don't smudge all over my page. I'm going to show that to you. I also have this handy dandy battery powered pencil sharpener, and it is really helpful when I'm doing a lot of pencil drawing here. So I highly recommend using that as a tool. I also have this kneaded eraser that I use with this process, and also a battery powered eraser. These are amazing for using with colored pencil. So those are some tools that I highly recommend if you decide you're going to get really into using colored pencils. If you're like me, artists kind of go in phases and we use different materials kind of all the time. You might be painting for a little while and then you decide you want to do some sketching. And so these are tools that you'll be able to use always. Okay, these are some of the colors that I'll be using. Sorry, I'm dropping everything here. So I'm using Prismacolor pencils. I'm not sponsored by them. They're just what I have used over the years and collected. And they do a really nice job. The thing that you need to understand about these pencils is they are wax-based. So again, you're going to start with your watercolor and then you're going to move into your pencils because water beads up on wax, right? So keep that in mind. If you don't have Prismacolors, that is not a problem. Use what you have. Also, let's talk real quickly about this Colorless Blender. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So a Colorless Blender allows you to blend nicely colored pencil. I kind of save this for the end, but it helps you, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, burnish the colored pencil and fill in the light spots in your paper. And because I'm using watercolor paper, this makes a really nice effect. But like I said, I save this for last because sometimes if you want to draw over it, it can start to get a little gunky or messy. And so I'm try to reserve it for specific places and not to use it too much before the end of your drawing. But know that this tool is out there. This is a great tool to use. So real quickly, I'm going to just open my door here and let my cat out, and then we will get to creating a horse here. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Throw them in chat. Don't be afraid to do that. We're going to get started. So when I look at my reference image, I'm always assessing where the light is. So the light's coming from this direction. So I'm noting that we have lighter areas here. We have some light here and some light here. So this isn't the best because it's a printout. So if you're actually looking at the reference photo, then that's a better thing to be using than looking here because it flattens it out a lot. The colors that I used for this fella is burnt ochre, sienna brown. I have this really nice terracotta color, and they look pretty close, but sometimes, you know, I'm using them in different stages, for different values. And then I'm also using this black cherry color and this Tuscan red. Those are the majority of what we're going to be using for this guy. I recommend if you're going to be using colored pencils, you know what your colored pencils look like. So put them on your page somewhere or on a separate page and just do like a little value study so you know what color is going to look a certain way. So there you can see we're having some variation in value here. And I have a black somewhere, though it's not here, but I am trying. I did use black here. I tried to use it minimally in this red area because I really wanted that color to pop. Another tool that I'd like to share with you real quickly is this brush. Now, you don't need a brush like this to do this kind of work, but sometimes it's kind of handy. When you are using colored pencils, sometimes we're going to have some dust from the colored pencil, so to speak, and you can use this to wipe away those little particles so they're not getting them all over your page. Also, for any eraser that's left on your page from your electric eraser or battery powered eraser, these are kind of handy. So you could use a paintbrush if that's what you've got to brush away extra that you don't want. So we're going to start. I'm going to start with my lightest color here, this burnt ochre. And we're just going to be kind of laying in these areas. I just kind of do it lightly to note where these areas are. I don't get too heavy-handed with my colored pencils yet. It's kind of a process of layering for me. And you can do this as much or as little as you want. I did a lot of colored pencil on this one. And sometimes if you're painting more and you're doing more shaping with paint, you might do less colored pencil. And that's okay. Sometimes you might just use the colored pencil for highlights or darker shadows, or just to clean up a line to define it a little bit better. But I'll share some quote that I heard once. Dull pencils make dull drawing. So you always kind of want to make sure that you're not letting your pencil get too dull. You'll want to kind of keep sharpening it as you're going along. The other thing to note if you're new to colored pencil is you can see when I'm lightly sketching here, that's lighter. And then when you're pressing harder, you're going to get some darker there. So if you have less colored pencils, you don't have, maybe you've just got a couple of browns, that is how you can create some different values, lights and darks, for yourself. So here you see you can kind of clean up some edges, especially where the hair might need a little finessing. That's the benefit of working with colored pencil. Okay, I'm going to scoot over to see if we have any comments. We don't have any comments or questions right now, and that is okay. Sometimes I also kind of just color in with a kind of a hatching method here, just to start getting that color in. Kind of build it up. We've done a nice job here of making sure that we have some pretty good values in. There is, this eye looks a little bit weird, so I'm going to fix it. It doesn't quite look right here. Let's see. So I'm going to use this lighter value and kind of build it around the eye to shape the eye. You're always assessing your lights and darks. You can draw by looking at your darks and putting in your darks and really just using value to draw with. So this is going to be a darker area here. I'm just putting this light color in there. Always looking at my reference. Squinting your eyes can really help you if you're having trouble discerning if an area is darker or lighter. You can see I'm just kind of using the side here lightly of my pencil. And I've marked out in the reference image some of these areas that have some shadows in them. We've got some darker shading here. So because I'm going to go in with another color, I'm not going to get too close together here because this is wax. Sometimes it gets a little funky. So we're just lightly going to layer, and then we are going to go back in with a darker color and press it down a little bit more. And you'll kind of see what I mean here as we go along here. Again, you can see I'm using this paper here so I'm not smudging my hand all through this. And I highly recommend that. It can save you heartache in the long run. Also, I have a tool that's it's great for colored pencils, and it is an expensive tool, so there are some workarounds actually for anyone who doesn't want to spend a fortune on the Icarus board. So there is a board, it's called the Icarus board. It is for colored pencils, and what it does is it melts the wax of the colored pencil, and that when you're working with colored pencil next to another color, it's kind of doing the same thing that our Colorless Blender does. It's kind of burnishing them in. And it heats up that wax and it creates a beautiful drawings. Let's see. Laurel says, when combining colored pencils and watercolor, what is the best paper to use? Well, that's a great question. I personally like watercolor paper that is a hot press paper. This is a cold press paper here. And so it has a lot of texture, but hot press paper is a different method, and it's smooth paper. So it's a lot like a Bristol paper. You could also use like a mixed media paper that you might find in your local store. But hot press paper is a great paper to use, so you can use the watercolor and the colored pencils and have that smooth surface. And so that's what I would recommend, Laurel. And it's nice to see that you're on here. Great question. I know other people would have that question as well. So I'm just keep looking at this guy and seeing where we have some of these darker areas. We have some darker kind of area around his neck. And again, you can go as detailed as you want here. Kind of depends on how much you painted. And you can always kind of come back into these areas and just show you kind of how I layer this. The whole goal ultimately is to enjoy yourself and have fun in the process. And sometimes, animals can really feel very difficult sometimes. Just do enjoy the process. You've got to start the process in order to learn. So And sometimes you can also salvage a watercolor sometimes when using this method if you feel like you've fouled it up and it doesn't quite look right. Sometimes you can fix it. I think most things are fixable. Okay, so you can see here we have lots of shadow here, and we're going to be building on that. So I'm going to put away this color for now. I'm going to move into a bit of a darker color. So I'm going to use the sienna brown. We'll see how much different you kind of see there. Actually, I feel like I need to fix this eye so it looks less weird. And let's see, do I have a black here? I have like one black and it has disappeared. Okay, I'm going to see if I have it over on my other desk. So keep coloring if you are. All right, there we go. Okay, so I have this black. I'm not going to color in the eye, all of the eye. I'm just got to put some shading in here to make it look less weird. So I'm going to scoot him over so you guys can see a little bit better. So we have this nice curve here, and I kind of need to fix where my watercolor kind of got out of alignment there. So you can see I'm going to leave a little bit of this just light in there because when you really look at an eye, again, it's made of value and color. And if you paint anything like metal or anything like that, that's really all it is lights and darks. And what makes eyes pop are the appropriate shading. I'm also kind of redrawing this crease here. Didn't do the best job in drawing this eye here. So I'm just going to let that be a little bit and maybe use a ginger root or kind of a yellow color here to just fill in this whiteness here. It's really making it stand out, and I'm not loving that. Okay, so that's better. I feel better about this for now. We'll go in and work on the eye later, but there we go. Okay, back to our sienna brown. So I'm just kind of going to hit these areas where I see we have some form shadows. So we have form shadows here. This is a form shadow, and what that means is it's turning away from the light and creating this dark shadow here. There's also some shading here that we can hit. It's also faced away from the sun a little bit. So we can start adding this area, and underneath here, we could hit in this darker parts here of the ear. So we'll do that next. So I'm kind of just always looking at my reference. I'm using a light touch still as I'm moving around these form shadows. As you can see, we got pretty dark over here. And if you look closely, you can see that the hair is moving down this way. So sometimes it's really nice to have strokes that go in that same direction that the hair is moving. So it can really give you that same feel. And I like to sometimes include these separated hash marks in there. Makes it feel very drawn and painterly, whereas, I have a tendency to try to be very realistic in my drawing, and sometimes it's just really nice to have that painterly or artsy feel. But as I'm moving into this darker area, I'm using the side of my pencil If you need to sharpen your pencil, do so. If you need to get into some areas here, kind of negative space drawing, where we're drawing in these darks and using this light to create this hair here. Kind of continue looking at how the hair, which direction it goes on the nose, and you can help create form that way as well. Now I understand that this is probably a pretty complex subject matter, and you'll probably want to continue to work on this outside of this class. But I encourage you to do it even if you think it's hard. You'll probably surprise yourself, and sometimes that's really fun in art, to push ourselves. Okay, I'm going to connect to this area a little bit. So you can kind of see how we're shaping this horse and really starting to make him look like a horse. And you could go right in with a dark color if you wanted to in your shading and leave more of the paint. This is another form shadow here. Draw that neck in there. Always adjusting. And this is definitely an area that will hit too. So one thing that might be kind of hard to see, horses have this eye ridge. It's a little hard to see in this picture that I took, so I'm going to just kind of draw that in there. And we have this kind of area here. We're going to have some shadow here. Again, I'm just kind of lightly applying pressure. And I kind of, when I drew this, I started with the horse and then I went into the hare later. So that's probably something that you'll get to work on your own a little bit. But we'll kind of see how far we get tonight and if you guys are hanging in there with me. Okay, so I'm going to hit this ear again, and we have light hitting this area. We have some dark here. And of course, the hair on these ears are kind of going this way. And we have this kind of form shadow here, this ridge. So anyway, earlier I was talking about this drawing board that heats up that you can use with your colored pencils. And so I was looking, I'm going to do a video kind of demonstrating this board. By no means do you need to have it in order to draw, but there is a workaround that's pretty inexpensive or free, depending on if you have these things at home. And it's kind of interesting. So you take a cookie sheet and you put a heating pad in the cookie sheet. You put a book the same size as the cookie sheet. You turn it over, and then you draw on the bottom of the cookie sheet with your paper and your colored pencil, and it will heat up your colored pencils just enough to make them melt nicely. And so one of these days, if it sounds interesting to you guys, we might explore that. And I totally plan on sharing the Icarus board with you, but I just thought that'd be neat to have a class on it where everyone could kind of enjoy that. Artists have all kinds of interesting techniques. Okay. I'm going to just hit this area. It feels a little light to me. And we'll hit in with our next pencil here. So what did I do with that? Sometimes I like to double check what a color is going to look like. That's a really pretty Tuscan red here. So I can go in. I need to sharpen that guy. And we can go in these areas that need a little bit of darkness, a little more shadow. And you can see already how that's looking different there. All right, Laurel. Okay, so I think we should do this heating pad thing because it's so cool what it does to wax crayons and wax pencils. And if you're really looking for a smooth finish, it just makes an incredible finish. So we'll do it. It'll be one of our classes. Oops, let's see. I kind of got sidetracked here. So I want to show you this really quick because I started drawing in an area that I see is a little bit lighter. So here is my handy dandy battery operated eraser. What's cool about these is it really works, at least on these Prismacolor pencils, if you haven't just burnished it into the paper. So if you need to lighten an area or fix a mistake, look how easy that was. So then I can go in and sketch around this guy. And I'm just looking at these form shadows, these dark areas that are in our reference photo and in this drawing here, because we have some real dark areas here. And I've kind of lost some of my tendrils of hair, but I'm gonna just kind of draw them in and draw around them here and see if I can't fix that. And I could fix that maybe with this eraser. So if I go in there, you can see that pulling out that color a little bit, and I can fix that. This guy's got this hair everywhere. He's like the Fabio horse. So I can reserve and preserve this kind of area here around that. Okay. So I'm just going to keep hitting these dark areas. It's especially dark around where the shadow is for the hair. And we're going to keep moving around this form shadow here. Can do a little of our side to side action. He has some dark area here, so I can lightly sketch in here. And we're kind of always assessing. So when I get to really drawing with colored pencils, I might have a couple in my hands where I'm working back and forth and really, you know, keep working it with the lights and the darks. So if you've got to do that, do it. Oh, and see, now's the time where I need to be using this little brush thing, because I start having some little flecks that show up. We've kind of got the shadow that keeps running here. We start working around the eye here. Oops. It's really dark in this area. He's got some curls too. Oh, see, I did it again. This is a dark area here, and I'm still lightly kind of burnishing here. And again, if you find that you have questions here, or I'm not clear about something, you don't understand why I'm doing something, please throw them in the comments here. And you're always welcome to ask questions. This area is dark, so we'll kind of keep darkening it up. One thing that I see with a lot of beginning students who struggle, or they need a little help, is to make sure that you have enough contrast with your drawing. So we're getting more contrast as we're going into these darker areas. Just don't be afraid of contrast. They'll definitely help make things look more realistic. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here there's this dark lid. It's a dark area where we've got a form shadow here. Around the eye here, and then we've got one here a little bit. Got this kind of lid. And you know, under the eyes is just as important as over on humans and animals. It's got the kind of this going on a little bit. I'm going to use my eraser. I got in an area that I didn't mean to. Got a little too dark. I think we could add a little. So I'm using this sienna brown that we used in second stage here to just fill in some spots. And how's that looking on camera? So we're looking like a horse. And again, I'm just going to keep creating these form shadows. I think I should probably darken this just a little. Just kind of always looking at my reference image, assessing how much contrast we have, how dark an area is. Still working pretty lightly on the paper. Oh, I'm gonna lose my lead there. That happens when you've broken your lead within your pencil, or I think sometimes when they're old, they kind of do that too. It maybe certain brands are more prone to it as well. Okay, so we have this dark area up here. We have a nice dark shadow here. kind of always looking at this and assessing, always finding new areas of shading. Again, the importance is to have fun while you're learning. And actually, and you know, it helps to also zoom out of your images to really be able to see what's going on. So it always is good to have, you know, if you can, have a printout as well while you're kind of working along. Because you're automatically zoomed out. I'm going to have this form shadow here. And I still feel like I could go a little bit darker here. So I just am going to. But he's starting to look like he's like a horse. Okay. So I have this really pretty purple color that I did move into black when I needed to, but you can see, I'm going to zoom in here. I love the color combination of purple and burnt orange together, and purple and raw umber. But you can see this is a really nice dark value for our darkest parts of our shading. Sorry guys, I just lost my camera here for a second. I moved it and it went away. There we go. Okay, just in case you need to be paying attention to time, we are at the hour mark here, but I'm going to keep drawing here. Just so we can kind of I want to be able to demonstrate how you can use this burnishing, this colorless blender. And so we are going to do that before I let you go tonight. Hopefully you've been able to hang in with me tonight. Definitely want to know what you think of our class as it is different. So you can see now I'm starting to press a little harder with this dark color. I'm a little closer together. And you can see how we're starting to get this nice form shadow. We're going to move up the bridge of this guy's nose. When I am drawing really anything, I kind of try to live by the rule of 5 values. You know, I have a dark value and I have my lightest value and then kind of everything in between. That gives you a nice range so your work doesn't look flat. And when it isn't flat, then it feels a lot more lifelike. And I think you're happy with it, you know, when you're drawing. So this is our one of our darkest areas. We could go back in, like in this example, I went in and used a black and some just here a little bit and a little bit in the ear so I could make sure that I got some of those darkest spots dark. But you could, this could be the end for you if you wanted it to be, and you wouldn't have to go any darker. But you can see how that starts to make a difference. And maybe you can see it, maybe you can't, but when I'm pressing down, I have these little remnants from my pencil. Just sweep it off. And, you know, sometimes you'll get some color over here. You can just use your kneaded eraser and clean up your edges. My sketch paper kind of went away here, so. So I'm still gonna work with this deep purple. It's kind of handy. One thing that I can tell you, a tip that I can give you that I find to be really helpful when I am painting or drawing and I've been working for a long time on a piece is I will take a picture with my cell phone and just kind of look at it from a different perspective, kind of. Also, you can use a mirror and you can look at the reverse of your image in a mirror. That will often help as well. And I find that colored pencils really kind of act like paints in a lot of ways. You're sort of mixing them when you're in this stage. Kind of burnishing into one another. This area is still pretty dark too. In that area, okay. Now, if you try to erase with a regular eraser with colored pencil, sometimes it's just not very successful. And I think it's just because it doesn't have the power of this erasing tool. So just know if you're trying to fix something and it's not working for you, a regular eraser may not be enough. And you'll kind of see as you're working along, things you need to adjust. So I don't usually talk about pop culture or television here, but if any of you are watching Mayor of Easttown and you're into true crime drama, drop me a note in chat. It's been a really interesting role to see Kate Winslet in, and I am really into the show. And I wondered if you are too. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. Just gonna quickly move into these areas where I can push my form shadows a little bit more. So Laurel was asking where Mayor of Easttown is streaming. It's actually on HBO Max. And if you're really into true crime, I think you'll really like it. I'm really liking it. And the thing that I really love about it is, you know, Kate Winslet is a very talented actress, of course. We all know that. But she has made a real point of it in this show to look like herself, look like a real honest to goodness person like the rest of us. And it was kind of one of her rules on set that everybody has, you know, bedhead, you know, kind of looks their age. And she's really just looks like a normal person, which I really love to see. And that's just a side note. It's like she's a great character actress. And, you know, I think that just lends to her performance, really. So you can kind of see I'm switching a little bit in between colors here. This one's really nice because it looks very burnt sienna-ish. I may have used a little bit of orange for that. But I'm kind of filling in these areas. I'm now pressing a little harder with my pencils. We're getting a little closer to a finishing point. Okay, so I think I'm going to work on the nose a little bit, and this will definitely help kind of solidify our horse a little bit. So I'm using a black pencil, and of course, when you're using black, if you press down really hard on it, it's going to be really dark, but you can gently use it to create kind of a gray color, or you can use a gray pencil as well. I'm going to start with the black and we'll see how we do here. Uh-oh. Hang on here. Okay. All right. I lost my lead there for a minute. So let's zoom in, I think, here a little bit. So we have this area here. If you're looking at the image, that's dark. It's really dark in this corner. And then it's pretty dark along this ridge. And kind of around here. We also have this area that's shadow and shadow. We have this little nub here. And we have this guy, we can use a little lighter touch over there. Then what we can do is you can just leave it like this if you wanted, or we can gently color in this area and move back and forth into that dark area. Same thing in this little area here. So maybe you're thinking, gosh, this is really complex for a drawing, and it sure is. And you can choose to decide how complex you want your drawing to be. But as you are on your art journey, maybe animals are really going to be a thing that you're interested in drawing. I want you to learn how you can make things even more appealing and make your artwork more interesting to you as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you some of the tips that I use too. Okay, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. And I can just gently kind of hatch with this black color. And work in kind of these areas that have a little more shading. We've got some kind of gray here around the nostril. Trying to preserve kind of this light area that's there. We'll see how well I can do that there. And then this guy kind of flares out a little. Now, at any point, you can go in and darken. You could even go into these areas and add black to add even more darkness and go that route. For tonight, I'm probably not going to do that. I want to kind of hit the hair and share with you the burnishing capabilities, and then you can continue to color this on your own. You're always welcome to take a screenshot of the screen as I'm working, so you can have that for later. Of course, you can always come back to these videos as well. And if you're doing this on your own time, you can do it at your own pace. So I'm using this great color called Ginger Root, and it's kind of a great color for the hair. And you can... One thing that I wanted to do that I did with colored pencil was I shaded, much like I did the horse, some of these areas where we had some shadowing from where the light is not hitting as much. So you can do it just like we did the horse and just do some shading this way and kind of keep working it. You can also just use what you had for your watercolor and just kind of draw in the strands as you'd like. Of course, you can define some of these flyaway strands, and they kind of help make the hair feel like hair. So this guy doesn't have helmet hair, you know what I mean? So you can kind of work your way around. You can use a brown, any kind of brown will do. Let's see if I can find one here. Just a regular brown. This is a dark brown. And you can fill in some of these areas where there is shading in there and really start shaping the hair that way. So there's lots of kind of areas up here. Some of this hair kind of appears red, so you can go in with your one of your siennas and sketch that in. Press a little harder there for darker sienna. You can even do that in the ears if you need to. You can try to go over this area here that I've lightened. You might need to use your eraser if you've covered up. That's just kind of fun to do. And then, you know, you can color those strands. You want to give the hair dimension in the same way that you've done the horse, so together it looks like one cohesive piece. So you'll be going into these areas. You'll need to darken those areas too, like this hair up here. And we're just kind of using a couple colors here. You can leave this area light. And you could even use some of these siennas to go in. You don't have to draw every strand, but we're looking again for value, because value can really help your drawings look more realistic. You don't want to forget this side because most of this is in shadow too. You guys that are with me still, you're my diehards. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of this broadcast and for being open to do something different. So you kind of get the idea here on the hair. I want to share with you what it looks like to use this blender. I'm going to sharpen it real quick. So I kind of like to, you know, sometimes you can work in circles. But if you kind of wait until you're at a good spot and you're kind of happy with where you're at, you can start getting some really nice effects here. Let's see if we can, that might be the best we can do for focusing in. You can kind of move back and forth, up and down. You don't have to use a colorless blender if you don't have one. It's not the end of the world. But if you have a place in town that sells Prismacolors, they'll have colorless blenders among their gear. So anything you kind of want to smooth out, like maybe like here, this is really sketchy around here. Just smooth it out a little. Now, granted, you could skip the whole watercolor process as well. I like it because it tones your paper and it gives you a good starting place. it's just really a personal preference thing. And as you get used to using watercolor more, you may not find that you want to use pencil. But you should know there's always an option to use different tools. You should always experiment, and you never know what you'll find, you know. Style is an often talked about thing that causes heartburn for a lot of artists. But the truth is, it's all about process and subject matter a lot of the time, and how you use your tools, because you're going to always kind of approach things a similar way when you get used to working and creating artwork. Some artists have lots of styles, but some have very distinct styles, and that's kind of how it happens. It's sort of an organic process. You know, you might want to leave some of this hair here, kind of rough sketched, to have that texture. Or you might want to smooth her out. Now you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to use a colorless blender. And if you feel like you need to go back on top of it, you can. Sometimes if you just keep working an area, it can kind of start creating an overworked area. So that's why I kind of save it for the end. And I don't always use it either. But you can see as you're moving it around, it's leaving little wax spots on the paper. Okay, so if you're still hanging in with me, what questions do you have? Now's a great time to field your questions. Let's see here. Sometimes I will use this secondary paper to clean off that edge a little bit, so I'm not transferring maybe a color that I don't want to transfer to a certain area. All right, let's see. We have a question. Well, right on, Laurel. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and thanks for tuning in tonight. Something a little bit different. And again, if there's something that you would like to see or a medium that you want to explore, let me know. I would be happy to at least explore some things. So also, Laurel, this is totally unrelated to this class, but if you're interested in the Fiber Guild, let me know, because you can totally be a part of that if you want to here locally. So Oh, awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Sometimes it takes a different medium to kind of help with that. And, you know, as I talk about value a lot, and that's really important. Sometimes it's kind of ambiguous if you're, you know, it's just starting out. So I'm glad that it was helpful. All right, so you can see here are my 2 horses. I could keep working on this guy. You guys can keep exploring your horses if you want to keep coloring them. Yes, Laurel will talk when you're in town, and I'll hook you up there. So I just wanted to make sure I said something before I forgot, because it comes and then it goes. So if you guys share your artwork on social media, you are welcome to tag me in social media. I'd love to see what you're working on. And you can see down here in the corner there, you can hit me up in social media. Let's switch cameras here real quick. Just some little business tidbits before I let you go. If you have questions, again, you can throw them down below and I will answer those as they come up, whether it's tonight or on down the line. I want to thank my Patreon patrons, Colin and Laurel, for supporting me and supporting this channel and making this possible. I appreciate you guys, and it makes me happy to know that you tune in and you're here with me every week. You guys are diehards. Also, if you want to learn more about me or see my artwork, you can go over to ihavegumption.com and check it out there. I also have a store there, so if you are into stickers and that kind of a thing, check it out. And also, I have a schedule of videos and classes that are up on my calendar. I just updated that today. So you can go check it out and check out past classes, or you can check out the YouTube channel. So I just want to say thank you. Thanks for tuning in and being here with me tonight. I hope you learned something new. And if you did, let me know or share a link with a friend. I also have lots of different videos on my channel. It's not just watercolor and colored pencils. I have some Procreate videos as well, and have some new stuff coming out as well. So thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep being creative, keep painting, and I will see you later.